Okay, so Rambo Last Blood was my most anticipated movie of 2019, even more so than Avengers Endgame. So if that doesn't give you an idea as to how much of a Rambo fan I am, I don't know what will. I absolutely love the Rambo franchise. I was so excited when this film was announced, and I went out yesterday, release day, first screening at my local cinema, 10 a.m. to see this movie. I was ready for it, ready for this finale, this Last Blood. What a brilliant title, right? And long story short, I watched the movie, I had my thoughts and feelings, and I came home and I thought, right, I may be able to turn this into a video review, but instead of doing my usual unscripted ramblings where I end up talking for an hour and then never actually making the video because I spoke too long and it was too inconsistent, I decided I'll sit down and I'll try to type out a script for it. 4.5 hours later, I have a 10-page Word document with 4,500 words. So yeah, I'm not making that review. But what I feel I could bring to the table is a discussion about the ending of this movie. The Last Blood. So needless to say, this video will contain spoilers for Rambo Last Blood, especially its ending. I would advise seeing the movie if you're a fan of Rambo or even just Stallone in general, but as someone who's a long-time fan and, has been with this franchise from, well, obviously not since the 80s, I wasn't alive back then, but has actually pretty much grown up with these, I feel attached to them and have a lot to say about how this wrapped up. Right, now for some important, big picture context. Well over a decade ago now, Stallone said in various interviews and magazine articles and that he was unhappy with the way Rocky V and Rambo 3, left things. Now you got to remember that 80s and 90s action stars, they weren't in high demand, they weren't doing so hot in the early 2000s, so it was kind of considered like a risky move to bring back these old franchises that kind of, went downhill. They still had their fans, but weren't as critically well received as the originals. But he goes ahead with it with passion and drive, and he creates Rocky Balboa, which does really well. And so he says to himself, right, okay, I've done justice to Rocky, I'm going to do this with Rambo. A lot of what I'll be paraphrasing is from various interviews at the time, but 90% of it comes from the special features on the Rambo 4 Blu-ray, because honestly I can't be bothered trying to track down those original articles. So after Rocky Balboa came out, he's sitting down with his team, he's trying to come up with an idea for Rambo 4, a fourth movie, and he has this idea of Rambo going up against the Mexican cartel, because he wants to tackle that real world issue, because if you don't know, and this is condensing a lot of information into one little sentence, but the Rambo movies, they're not all just generic gun-toting action movies. I know that's what he's seen as like this cultural icon, the bandana, the ripped muscles, the firing and without reloading. But they have political messages, and some of them have really, deep plots. Anyway, so he wants to tackle this issue of the Mexican cartel, but he couldn't really, develop the story or build on it at the time, so they decided to go a different route, which was the Burmese Crisis, what was going down there in like 2007, 2008, and it worked. Like, they nailed it. I could literally talk for hours about the fourth Rambo movie. It's one of my favourites. It's definitely one of the best action movies of this century. And honestly, the impact it had, like what actually was happening in Burma, and the impact it had to the people viewing it, it's really good. Like I said, I could talk about it for an hour. So it was definitely the right decision to go that route instead. Then of course you got Creed 1 and 2, which I think was like a clever way of continuing the Rocky story, where it's not his story. He's got his little backstory, but it's more about Adonis Creed. As for 2008's Rambo, or John Rambo, or Rambo 4, or whatever title it is in your country, it didn't have like a conclusion that said, alright, this is the end of his story. It was just another brilliant chapter. So when Rambo 5's announced, and Stallone reveals via Instagram that he's going back to that original story, about going up against the Mexican cartel, I thought, okay, right, this is it, right? This is the end. That's clearly indicated by the title, Rambo Last Blood. The dead giveaway was way back in 2007 when he was coming up with that original draft, and even now, when he announced that in 2018, they said both times that they wanted Rambo to go out in a blaze of glory, right? So, okay, this is going to be the definitive end for the character, right? Well, this is where the ending spoilers come in. Long story short, at the end of Rambo Last Blood, it is unclear whether he actually dies. Whether or not that was the filmmaker's intention to make it ambiguous, which I don't think it is, and I'll explain later, but it still seems really cheap to have a film called Rambo Last Blood to talk it up as if it's going to be this final hurrah for Rambo, and then cheaping out in the end. Okay, last chance if you want to avoid the spoilers. The end of Rambo Last Blood. He's taken a bullet to the gut, he's taken a bullet to the shoulder. Now, since taking those 2 shots, we've seen him run full pelt, fire a bow and arrow with a hole in his shoulder, and also shuffle around limping like he's actually injured. So he's alternating from one to the other. It's not clear whether or not we're going by movie logic or realism, because in Rambo 3 he got shot in the leg and then 2 minutes later he's running around completely fine. And in the span of a few minutes at the end of this film, as I said, he alternates from actually showing that he's injured to, being fine. So we know he's been shot twice, and he's, in his late 70s, right? The guy's old, but it's not clear whether he's actually dying or not. So the bad guys are all dead, he's limping up to his house, and then as he goes to sit in a rocking chair, the voiceover starts. Now, the voiceover is something that I'm not familiar with in the Rambo franchise. I may be misremembering, but I don't think there's been voiceover before. I may be wrong, but regardless, the voiceover starts up. He sits down in his rocking chair, holding his wound. He starts rocking back and forth. So I'm like, okay, this is it. This is the end of this character. Now, my thoughts on the movie aside, it wasn't as bombastic as send-off as I'd, anticipated, but the 2 perfect ways I thought to end the character was either to go the route that they mentioned of him going down in a blaze of glory, or, he sits down in the rocking chair, he starts rocking back and forth, and then slowly, either his hands drops down, or the chair stops rocking, and you hear the trumpets from the iconic Rambo theme tune. But what actually happens, he sits down, he starts rocking back and forth, the voiceover's talking, and the final line of the voiceover is something along the lines of, this is my home, I will fight to protect my family, or fight to protect what I love till the day I die. And the camera pans out, and he keeps rocking, and then the credits start rolling. Now again, the director has only ever done 1 movie before, so maybe it was, the direction, but from what you're seeing, it's not clear whether he's dead or not. Now again, I'm not sure if that's meant to be ambiguous, and whether it's intentional, but it is what it is. You do not see him die. You don't know if he dies or not. Now, from what I'm describing, and maybe what you have seen, it may be obvious, like, yes, of course he dies, or no, of course he doesn't die. But I'm telling you, from what you see in the movie, without any outside information, it seems like, accidental or not, it's ambiguous, like, he is or isn't dead. Kind of reminds me of the ending of Breaking Bad, where it's like, yeah, of course he's dead, but then, you get a film theory episode about how, hey, he could still be alive, and it just makes you think. Before anyone starts typing in the comments saying, oh, no, duh, of course he's dead, or no, of course he's not dead. After I got home, I thought about it for a while, and as I was typing out my 4,500 page Word document review, I googled it, and that's what gave you the answer. Interviews from back in June, Sylvester Stallone was quoted of saying that there are some roles, iconic movie roles of his, that he would gladly like to play again because he enjoys playing them so much. Now, of course, it's all hearsay, and interviewers, whether they twist words or what, or whether it actually meant what he said, like, it's all interviews, but it's clear as day that he is willing to return to the role of Rocky and Rambo. Now, if you've seen the end of Creed 2, Rocky doesn't actually have a farewell, like an official end. He kind of walks off, seemingly out of the story, goes to visit his family, but he doesn't die. So both Rocky and Rambo are like in limbo, where this could serve as their finale until a couple of years' time where Stallone decides, no, I want to make another one. That really, really upset me. I thought it was such a mature decision of him. I thought he realized he was getting old, and he wanted to do justice to these iconic cinematic icons, right? Because that's what they are, Rocky and Rambo. Not many action stars, both characters and actors, have that opportunity, mostly because they don't have franchises behind them, but that is something not often afforded to many people. I mean, just look at Predator and Terminator and Die Hard. Like, they're either gonna keep going until the actors die, or they're just gonna keep making them worse and worse. So you put 2 and 2 together, and here's this original plan of Rambo going up against the cartel. It's his final stand. It's a revenge plot first and foremost. And then you've got Stallone saying that he would be willing to return to the role. I mean, the two don't add up. Whether or not it was their intention at the time of filming the movie, I honestly believe that this is meant as a placeholder ending. So for now, Rambo's dead, and it's a definitive, like, okay, this is the end of a story, but at any time in the next 10 years or so, if Stallone's up for it, he could say, actually, I want to make Rambo Last Blood Part 2, and Rambo didn't die there, which cheapens the effect of this movie, and it just really upsets me. Again, you went from this mature decision of deciding, right, I'm going to do justice to these cinematic icons, give them, you know, the proper send-off, like, honour their legacy, because, again, that's not what Rocky 5 and Rambo 3 were. And now we've got this ending in which, like, at any time it could be cleared up. Like, any day now, there could be a new interview released where Stallone says, oh yeah, no, Rambo's dead. In which case this video is rendered useless. But for the time being, you look on Google and one of the top trending results is, does Rambo die in Last Blood? And not many people are talking about it, but the people that are, that I have seen talking about it, they don't know. I do really want to stress that I'm unsure whether this is an intentional choice, like the ending of Inception, where you have to wonder, like, oh, is it or isn't it? Because Rambo 5, in my opinion, it's a little subpar, right? This is condensing my, 10-page, 4,500 word, essay down into one sentence, but, I mean, it's a fine generic action movie. It's not a great Rambo movie, and it's not a finale. And if this is how the franchise ends, this is the end of Rambo, then that just makes it worse. Again, I'm not here to review Last Blood, but I just wanted to maybe warn some people or clarify things that Last Blood isn't Last Blood. We don't know at this stage. Then again, we live in a day and age where even franchises that have wrapped up and have been dead for over a decade can come back. They're making a Matrix 4. Like, it's happening. John Wick and Hogarth from Jessica Jones are coming back. They're in it. It's happening. So whether or not this was the finale anyway, they could choose to do another one, but it just annoys me that they decided to not take the effort to wrap it up. It's like Orange is the New Black Season 7 all over again. I don't know if there's any crossover by people that watch Rambo and watch Orange is the New Black, but that's the same how I felt about that. I guess this is the part where I ask you, what do you think? Do you think he's dead? Do you think he's not dead? Are you going to overthink it and be like, well, maybe if he didn't die then, he would still die from his injuries because of the events that happened in the movie, maybe he doesn't want to live, and it's all hearsay. At the end of the day, it wasn't clear whether he died or not, and given what Stallone has said in interviews, it's not clear. I mean, any day now they could just decide to make another one, like Indiana Jones 5. Very rarely do we see movie franchises actually get a definitive conclusion. Obviously, ones based on books, like Harry Potter, I guess, they get their conclusion, but then, now we've got Fantastic Beasts, so it's just gonna keep going. They're just gonna reboot Rambo, aren't they? I thought that was a joke, but that's probably gonna happen. If you've seen Rambo Last Blood, what do you think? Do you think he's dead? Do you think he's not dead? What do you think of Stallone's decision to retroactively go against what he said all those years ago about wanting this to be Rambo's, his send-off, his going down in a blaze of glory? Thank you for watching this rambly video. I'll catch you guys next time.